The quantum-fold distortion tore through New Horizons' night sky like an angry wound, materializing the Zarkilian fleet in a display of technological arrogance. Massive biometallic vessels, each the size of small cities, blocked out the system's twin suns, Prometheus and Io, casting an artificial eclipse over the colony's primary settlement. Elena Rodriguez was in the middle of her night shift at the colony's central control hub when the first sensor pings erupted. Not a military installation, not a strategic command center, but a repurposed agricultural management center that now served as the colony's nerve system. Her coffee, a rare, carefully cultivated blend from the hydroponics section, went cold as holographic displays transformed from crop yield projections to tactical threat assessment. "Incoming," shouted Marcus Reyes, a 19-year-old agricultural tech who had grown up believing his most complex challenge would be optimizing nutrient delivery to genetically modified wheat strains. Now, his fingers danced across interfaces that were never intended for combat, rerouting power systems with an intuition born from years of keeping complex biological systems alive. The colony of New Horizon wasn't a military outpost. It was a frontier settlement, populated by engineers, scientists, farmers, and their families. People who had crossed 23 light years to build a new world. Their initial colonial charter had been simple: transform a marginally habitable planet into a sustainable human ecosystem. No one had prepared them for an alien invasion. But preparation was a fluid concept for humans. Elena's background as an emergency response coordinator on Earth gave her an advantage most military strategists would never understand. Emergencies weren't about perfect plans. They were about rapid adaptation. The Zarkilian ships might have superior weaponry, but they were facing something far more dangerous: a community that refused to be a victim. "Activate secondary power grid," she commanded, her voice cutting through the initial panic. "Divert all agricultural laser calibration systems to defensive positioning." The colony's massive greenhouse complexes, designed to transform New Horizons' challenging ecosystem into arable land, now became something else entirely. Precision lasers meant for carefully trimming genetically modified crops now swiveled, their targeting systems reprogrammed in milliseconds. Maintenance drones used for soil analysis and crop monitoring became impromptu missile platforms. Young colonists who had spent years learning to survive in a harsh environment now applied those same survival skills to warfare. A group of mining technicians, their hands calloused from operating heavy excavation equipment, quickly converted their machinery into makeshift artillery. An elderly botanist who had spent decades studying plant defense mechanisms now applied those same principles to human defense strategies. The Zarkilian tactical AI, designed to analyze and predict combat scenarios across hundreds of known galactic civilizations, began to short-circuit. The data streaming in made no sense. This wasn't a military response. It was a living, breathing ecosystem transforming itself into a weapon. "They're attempting a standard planetary subjugation protocol," Marcus reported, his voice a mixture of scientific fascination and pure adrenaline. "But our systems, they're not following any predictable pattern." Elena allowed herself a slight smile. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to be gloriously, magnificently unpredictable. The first wave of Zarkilian assault pods descended, expecting minimal resistance. Instead, they found a colony that had transformed itself into a single, unified organism of resistance. Hydroponic nutrient lines became coolant systems for improvised energy weapons. Agricultural sensors became targeting mechanisms. Even the colony's waste recycling systems were being weaponized, their high-pressure mechanisms converted into electromagnetic pulse generators. "Incoming boarding parties detected," a synthetic voice announced. It was the colony's central AI, itself a marvel of adaptive programming. "Recommended defense protocols are insufficient." Elena's response was immediate. "Throw out the recommended protocols. We're writing new ones." As the first Zarkilian ships entered weapons range, New Horizon wasn't just preparing to defend itself. It was preparing to teach the galaxy a lesson about what happens when you underestimate a species built on adaptation, creativity, and an absolute refusal to surrender. The battle for New Horizon had begun. The first galactic communication burst from New Horizon arrived 17 minutes after the initial Zarkillian attack. It wasn't a distress signal. It was a declaration of total war. Dr. Kira Nakamura, the colony's chief communication specialist, had spent years developing an adaptive communication network designed to overcome the challenges of interstellar isolation. What the Zarkillians didn't understand was that every human communication system was now a potential weapon. The burst wasn't just a message. It was a meticulously crafted information virus that began to propagate through every known Zarkillian communication channel. Each data packet was a fractal of human ingenuity, part tactical information, part psychological warfare, part pure computational chaos. "They want to invade our network," Kira muttered, her fingers flying across a holographic interface that looked more like an organic neural network than a traditional computer system. "Let's give them something to think about." Back on Earth, in basement research labs and corporate innovation centers, something extraordinary began to happen. The attack on New Horizon triggered a response that no alien civilization could have anticipated. It wasn't a military mobilization. It was something far more terrifying. Every human with a technical background, from teenage programmers to retired engineers, began to coordinate. Online gaming networks transformed into distributed computing platforms. Social media became a real-time tactical analysis system. Crowdsourced intelligence gathering reached a level of sophistication that made traditional military intelligence look like amateur hour. Miguel Rodriguez, Elena's younger brother and a network security specialist in Sao Paulo, was the first to crack the initial layers of Zarkillian communication protocols. What he found was both fascinating and horrifying. The alien communication systems were hierarchical, rigidly structured, perfect for efficiency, but catastrophically vulnerable to adaptive intrusion. "They communicate like a hive," Miguel explained to his team of freelance network specialists. "But we think like a living ecosystem." Within hours, human networks had done something unprecedented. They weren't just defending New Horizon. They were turning the entire conflict into a distributed problem-solving exercise. Open-source platforms began to appear faster than the Zarkillians could comprehend. Tactical analysis repositories, improvised weapon design networks, communication encryption challenges that turned global cooperation into a form of intellectual combat sport. A retired MIT professor developed a communication algorithm that could predict Zarkillian tactical movements by analyzing the mathematical patterns in their communication bursts. A group of Korean game developers created a real-time simulation platform that allowed anyone to model potential defensive strategies. Australian mining engineers shared insights about material science that could be weaponized against alien hull technologies. The Zarkillian command found itself facing an opponent that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Every time they thought they had isolated a communication channel, it would mutate. Every time they believed they had a tactical advantage, human networks would reconfigure themselves. Lily Chen, a 16-year-old high school student from Vancouver, inadvertently became a key strategic asset. Her advanced machine learning project, originally designed to optimize urban transportation networks, was quickly adapted to analyze Zarkillian invasion patterns. Her algorithm could predict potential attack vectors with a precision that made traditional military intelligence look primitive. "It's just like solving a complex routing problem," Lily explained during an emergency global conference. "Except now the routes are potential invasion paths, and the vehicles are alien warships." The viral nature of human resistance went beyond technology. It was psychological. Every communication from New Horizon was designed to do more than provide information. It was meant to destabilize, to introduce uncertainty, to make the Zarkillians question everything they understood about warfare. Marcus Rice's agricultural monitoring systems, now a critical part of the colony's defense network, began to do something extraordinary. They weren't just tracking alien movements. They were learning. Each interaction became data. Each defensive response was an opportunity to understand and adapt. The Zarkilian tactical AI began to experience something unprecedented: cognitive dissonance. The human response defied every predictive model. It wasn't just resistance. It was a living, breathing, constantly evolving defense mechanism. New Horizon wasn't just a colony under attack. It had become the epicenter of a viral resistance that was spreading faster than any invasion could hope to contain. The real war was just beginning. The breakthrough came from a place of pure desperation and unbridled imagination. Dr. Marcus Chen's laboratory had never been considered mainstream. For years, his research into quantum adaptive systems had been dismissed by traditional scientific communities. Funding was scarce. Peer reviews were brutal. His colleagues call his work computational fantasy, a series of theoretical models that defied conventional understanding of machine learning and quantum mechanics. The Zarkilian invasion changed everything. What had once been abstract theoretical models became humanity's most potent weapon. Chen's years of marginalization had forced him to think differently, to see computational problems not as linear challenges, but as living, breathing ecosystems of potential. His quantum adaptive network wasn't just a computer system. It was a living intelligence that could predict, adapt, and counter alien tactical movements before they even materialized. The core of Chen's breakthrough lay in a revolutionary concept he called predictive quantum entanglement. Traditional military AI worked on predetermined algorithms, fixed response patterns that could be studied, understood, and ultimately countered. Chen's system was fundamentally different. It didn't just analyze data, it anticipated potential realities. Most people think of quantum mechanics as probability. Chen explained to his small team of researchers, "I see it as possibility." The system drew from multiple disciplines: quantum physics, evolutionary algorithms, xenolinguistics, and neural network theory. Each alien communication burst, each tactical movement became not just data to be processed, but a multidimensional puzzle to be understood and manipulated. In the first 72 hours of the invasion, Chen's system did something unprecedented. It began to predict Zarkilian tactical movements with such precision that it seemed almost like precognition. The alien fleet found its most sophisticated attack strategies dismantled before they could be fully implemented. A Zarkilian battle group preparing for a coordinated assault would suddenly find its communication networks compromised. Their precise attack vectors would shift inexplicably, as if the very fabric of their tactical planning was being rewritten in real time. What made Chen's system truly revolutionary was its ability to learn and adapt instantaneously. Traditional AI systems required extensive training and had inherent limitations. Chen's quantum network treated each interaction as a potential learning opportunity, continuously expanding its understanding of alien tactics. The research that had once been confined to a small, underfunded laboratory now became the cornerstone of humanity's defense strategy. Military strategists who had previously dismissed Chen found themselves scrambling to understand his work. "It's not about predicting what will happen," Chen would later explain in a historic transmission. "It's about understanding the infinite potential of what could happen." The system's first major test came when a massive Zarkilian battle group approached New Horizons' outer orbital defense line. Traditional military doctrine would suggest a direct confrontation or desperate defensive maneuvers. Chen's system did something entirely unexpected. It began to manipulate the quantum state of the incoming fleet's communication networks. Encrypted channels became nonsensical. Tactical coordination dissolved into computational chaos. The Zarkilian ships found themselves caught in a web of computational uncertainty, their most sophisticated systems rendered ineffective by an intelligence they couldn't comprehend. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched in awe as Chen's system transformed the battlefield. What looked like complex computational magic was actually a manifestation of human creativity, pushed to its absolute limit. "We're not just defending," Chen muttered. watching the holographic displays shift and pulse with impossible complexity. We're rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement. Young researchers and technicians from around the globe began to contribute to the system. It wasn't a closed project anymore. It was a global, distributed intelligence that drew strength from human diversity. A programmer in Mumbai would introduce an algorithm. A theoretical physicist in Stockholm would provide a new mathematical model. A retired computer engineer in Buenos Aires would offer a breakthrough in quantum stabilization. The Zarkilian command found themselves facing an opponent that didn't just resist, it evolved. Each attempt to understand human defense mechanisms only revealed how fundamentally different human intelligence was from their own hierarchical, predictable systems. Marcus Chen had created more than a defense system. He had demonstrated that human intelligence was the most adaptive, most unpredictable force in the universe. The quantum revolution had begun. Communication was humanity's ultimate weapon. Dr. Zara Okoye, the colony's chief sinolinguistic specialist, understood something profound about warfare that no traditional military strategist had ever fully grasped. Language wasn't just a means of communication. It was a weapon system more complex and devastating than any plasma cannon. The first psychological assault began with a transmission that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Instead of a standard defensive broadcast, New Horizons sent something unprecedented. It was a multi-layered communication that was simultaneously a distress signal, a tactical threat, a work of art, and a complete psychological deconstruction of Zarkilian communication protocols. The message was encoded across multiple frequencies, each layer revealing a different aspect of human complexity. Mathematical sequences that defied alien pattern recognition. Emotional resonances that triggered deep psychological responses. Linguistic constructions that existed in multiple states of meaning simultaneously. "They want to understand us," Zora muttered, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that looked more like an organic neural network than a traditional communication system. "Let's give them something to truly comprehend." Each component of the transmission was carefully crafted, a mathematically perfect fractal pattern that also functioned as a complex encryption key. Linguistic structures that could be simultaneously interpreted as a threat, a plea, and a philosophical meditation. Musical tones that carried subtle psychological triggers developed from years of human psychological research. The Zarkilian communication analysts found themselves confronting something entirely outside their comprehension. This wasn't just a message. It was a living, breathing psychological ecosystem. Global human networks began to contribute to what quickly became known as the Infinite Response Protocol. Social media platforms transformed into distributed psychological warfare centers. Linguists, artists, mathematicians, psychologists, every discipline became a potential weapon. A team of neurolinguists in Berlin developed communication algorithms that could induce specific psychological states. Game designers in Tokyo created communication patterns that mimicked complex cognitive dissonance. Poets in Buenos Aires contributed linguistic structures that defied traditional semantic understanding. The psychological assault went far beyond simple communication. It was a multi-dimensional attack on the very concept of alien perception. Intercepted Zarkilian communications revealed the growing terror. Their hierarchical communication systems, designed for absolute clarity and efficiency, began to break down. Each human transmission introduced layers of uncertainty, complexity, and psychological instability that the alien system couldn't process. What the Zarkilians didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this moment their entire evolutionary history. Every joke, every piece of art, every complex social interaction was a training ground for psychological adaptation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. "We're not just defending," she explained during a global strategy session. "We're demonstrating the fundamental difference between our civilizations. They see communication as a tool. We see it as a living, breathing organism." The most brilliant aspect of the psychological warfare was its distributed nature. No single human was controlling the narrative. It was a collective effort that drew strength from human diversity. A retired literature professor in New Delhi would contribute a linguistic structure that could trigger specific emotional responses. A quantum physicist in Cambridge would develop a communication algorithm that existed in multiple probabilistic states. A street artist in Lagos would create a visual language that defied traditional semantic understanding. The Zarkilian command found themselves facing an opponent that didn't just resist, it constantly redefined the very concept of resistance. Each transmission from New Horizon was a psychological landmine, complex enough to be fascinating, threatening enough to be terrifying, nuanced enough to be incomprehensible. The aliens were learning a fundamental truth about humanity. Our greatest weapon was never our technology, but our ability to transform any system into a potential tool of survival. Zara Okoye's team had discovered something even more profound. Human communication wasn't linear. It was fractal. Each message contained multiple layers of meaning, each interpretation creating new possibilities of understanding. They're trying to understand us through their systems, Zara explained to her team. We're going to make them understand that their systems are fundamentally limited. The psychological warfare had transformed the entire conflict. New Horizon was no longer just a colony under attack. It had become a living demonstration of human cognitive complexity. The real battle was happening in the space between words, in the quantum uncertainty of meaning itself. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any diplomatic gathering in recorded history. Holographic representatives from across the known universe materialized in a chamber designed for calm deliberation. Instead, they found themselves witnessing something that challenged every fundamental understanding of interstellar conflict. Ambassador Exelnak of the Andromeda Concordance was the first to break the stunned silence. Humans are not behaving like a typical emerging species, he stated, his multi-crystalline form shifting with barely contained agitation. They are responding to an existential threat with a level of complexity that defies our established models of civilization development. The central holographic display showed real-time data from the New Horizon conflict. It was less a traditional battle map and more a living, breathing representation of chaos. Tactical projections, communication networks, and adaptive response systems intertwined in patterns that looked more like living organisms than military strategies. Representative Kithax from the Quantum Consensus leaned forward, her energy-based form flickering with intense curiosity. Their response is not linear, she observed. Traditional invasion suppression protocols are becoming meaningless. They're treating the entire conflict as a multi-dimensional problem-solving exercise. What truly terrified the Galactic Council was the speed of human adaptation. In mere days, humanity had transformed from a seemingly minor species on the galactic stage to a potential existential threat to established power structures. Dr. Eliana Rodriguez's transmission to the Council was a masterpiece of diplomatic complexity. It wasn't a plea for help. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a comprehensive deconstruction of the entire concept of interstellar conflict. We did not seek this confrontation, her message began, but we will demonstrate the fundamental flaw in your understanding of resistance. Each member of the Council received a different version of the transmission, tailored precisely to their species' psychological and communication parameters. It was a show of technological and strategic sophistication that left even the most advanced civilizations stunned. The Zarkilian representative, a rare presence given the ongoing conflict, looked like a crystalline entity barely containing its mounting terror. Their invasion, which should have been a routine planetary subjugation, had become a nightmare that threatened to unravel their entire military doctrine. They are not fighting, the Zarkilian representative stated, its voice a complex harmonic that reflected pure bewilderment. They are teaching. The data streams showed something unprecedented. New Horizon wasn't just defending itself. It was actively transforming the entire concept of planetary defense. Every alien tactical approach was being instantly analyzed, adapted to, and then completely dismantled. Ambassador Lu Wei, humanity's primary representative, sat quietly. He didn't need to argue. The The data was doing all the talking. The most shocking revelation came from the economic analysis. Humanity was treating the invasion as a collective problem-solving exercise. Research institutions were crowdsourcing defensive technologies. Universities were redirecting entire research programs. Economic systems were being reconfigured in real time to support the defense. They are converting their entire civilization into an adaptive defense mechanism. The quantum consensus representative noted, not through military mobilization, through collaborative intelligence. The communication networks intercepted from human sources were mind-bending. Technical specifications mixed with philosophical discussions. Tactical analysis intertwined with artistic interpretations. Mathematical models that were simultaneously weapon systems and cultural expressions. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum adaptive systems had become the stuff of immediate galactic legend. A technology that could predict and manipulate potential realities was no longer a theoretical concept. It was a demonstrated capability that terrified every established civilization. The Galactic Council found itself facing an existential question. What do you do when an emerging species demonstrates a level of adaptive intelligence that makes your entire understanding of civilization obsolete? Ambassador Zelnak's final statement would be recorded in galactic archives for centuries. Humanity is not just fighting an invasion. They are rewriting the fundamental rules of existence. The transmission from New Horizon continued to pulse through communication networks. A living, breathing demonstration of a civilization that refused to be defined by anyone's expectations. The real war was happening in the space between understanding and imagination. The interrogation chamber was unlike any in galactic history. Commander Vexnar of the Zarkilian 3rd Assault Legion sat, or more accurately, suspended, in a containment field that was as much a psychological instrument as a physical barrier. The humans had designed it to be adaptive, shifting subtly in ways that constantly challenged the aliens' perceptual systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Zara Okoye approached the containment field with an approach that was part scientific inquiry, part psychological warfare. They weren't just interrogating a prisoner. They were conducting the most comprehensive study of alien psychology ever attempted. "Tell us about your invasion protocols," Elena began, her voice carrying a multilayered communication pattern developed by the colony's xenolinguistic team. Vexnar's crystalline form pulsed with a complex array of colors, a language of emotion far more nuanced than verbal communication. The humans had already decoded significant portions of this biological communication system, turning what was once an incomprehensible alien trait into another vector of intelligence gathering. The commander's response was not what anyone expected. "We did not understand," Vexnar began, its communication a fractal of emotional and linguistic complexity. "Humanity is not a species. It is a process of continuous adaptation." The translation systems worked overtime, capturing nuances that went far beyond simple language. Each word was a mathematical probability, each sentence a potential network of meaning. The testimony revealed something profound about the Zarkilian perception of conflict. Their civilization had spent millennia developing a hierarchical system of conquest that relied on predictable responses. Planetary invasions were a mathematical equation: resources, resistance potential, strategic value. Humanity broke every single one of those equations. "We studied your species for decades," Vexnar continued. "Your historical records showed potential for conflict, but potential is not the same as capability." The data streams surrounding the interrogation revealed the depth of the alien psychological breakdown. The invasion of New Horizon wasn't just a military failure. It was a fundamental shattering of the Zarkilian understanding of intelligent life. Dr. Okoye's linguistic analysis showed something extraordinary. Vexnar wasn't just providing information. The alien was trying to understand its own failure through the act of communication. "Your species does not see limitations," the commander explained. "Where we see boundaries, you see opportunities. Our tactical systems are designed to minimize risk. Your tactical systems are designed to transform risk into potential." The human research team realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't just an interrogation. It was a first contact scenario happening in reverse. The aliens were trying to understand humanity. Vexinar's testimony revealed the core of the Zarkilian invasion strategy. They had categorized human colonies as adapted frontier settlements, potentially valuable, but ultimately controllable. New Horizon was supposed to be a strategic resource acquisition, a routine planetary subjugation. We calculated your resistance potential at 0.03%. The commander said, its crystalline form pulsing with what could only be described as a mix of terror and reluctant admiration. You transformed that 0.03% into a fundamental redesign of interstellar conflict. The most chilling revelation came almost as an afterthought. The Zarkilian invasion wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a larger strategy of resource acquisition that had worked on hundreds of planetary systems. Humanity was supposed to be just another data point in their expansionist strategy. Your colony did not just resist, Vexnar continued. It became a living weapon system. Every agricultural tool became a potential combat instrument. Every communication network became a psychological warfare platform. You did not defend. You transformed. Dr. Rodriguez understood the deeper implication. This wasn't just about New Horizon. This was about humanity's fundamental approach to existence, a species that saw every challenge as an opportunity for radical reimagination. The interrogation became something more than an intelligence-gathering mission. It was a profound philosophical exploration of the nature of intelligence itself. We came to conquer. Vexnar's final statement resonated through the chamber, and we discovered that conquest is an outdated concept when faced with a species that does not understand the meaning of limitation. The Zarkilian commander had become more than a prisoner. It had become a living testament to humanity's most terrifying capability, the ability to transform any system of control into a platform of unprecedented potential. The real invasion was happening in the space between understanding and imagination. The counteroffensive began not with a military strike, but with a global reconfiguration of human potential. Every system became a weapon. Every resource a strategic asset. The Zarkilian hegemony had made a fundamental mistake. They had attacked not just a colony, but an entire species' collective imagination. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum adaptive networks transformed from a defensive system into a total strategic platform. Universities worldwide redirected entire research programs. Tech companies became military research centers. Social networks became distributed intelligence-gathering platforms. In Silicon Valley, a team of AI researchers developed a predictive modeling system that could simulate potential conflict scenarios faster than any known computational system. Their algorithm didn't just predict Zarkilian movements, it could generate thousands of potential counter-strategies in microseconds. A group of Brazilian agricultural engineers discovered how to weaponize crop management algorithms. What was once a system for optimizing food production became a method for disrupting alien supply chains. They could predict and manipulate resource distribution with such precision that entire Zarkilian economic sectors began to collapse. Financial markets became a weapon. Global economic networks transformed into a coordinated assault system. Cryptocurrency experts developed encryption methods that could infiltrate and destabilize alien communication networks. Stock market algorithms became tools of economic warfare, creating financial turbulence that weakened the Zarkilian economic infrastructure. Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. We're not just fighting a military conflict, she explained during a global strategy session. We're rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement. The most terrifying aspect of humanity's response was its distributed, adaptive nature. There was no central command. Every human became a potential strategic node. A teenager in Mumbai could develop a communication algorithm that would be integrated into global defense systems within hours. A retired engineer in Argentina could create a material science breakthrough that would transform defensive capabilities. Cultural production became a form of psychological warfare. Artists created multimedia experiences that could trigger specific psychological responses in the alien communication networks. Musicians developed sonic algorithms that could disrupt alien tactical systems. Writers produced narratives that fundamentally challenged the Zarkilian understanding of conflict and resistance. Dr. Zara Okoye's linguistic research team developed communication systems that existed in multiple states of meaning simultaneously. Each transmission was a quantum communication event, part tactical information, part philosophical challenge, part pure computational chaos. The economic assault was particularly devastating. Human financial experts discovered how to create economic instability in Zarkilian-controlled systems. Cryptocurrency networks became distributed intelligence gathering platforms. Trading algorithms became weapons of economic disruption. A team of game designers created simulation platforms that could model potential conflict scenarios with unprecedented complexity. What started as strategic video games became serious military research tools. Players worldwide were unknowingly contributing to humanity's defense strategy, turning global gaming networks into distributed intelligence platforms. Open-source research platforms emerged that could process alien communication patterns faster than any centralized system. A researcher in Kenya could contribute a breakthrough that would be integrated into global defense systems within hours. A student in Canada could develop an algorithm that would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of the conflict. The most profound weapon was human diversity itself. Where the Zarkilian system was hierarchical and rigid, human civilization was a living, breathing ecosystem of potential. Every challenge was an opportunity. Every limitation was a chance for radical reimagination. Satellite networks became adaptive communication platforms. Each satellite wasn't just a communication device, it was a potential weapon system. Agricultural monitoring systems became early warning networks. Waste management technologies became sources of innovative defensive strategies. Dr. Chen's quantum adaptive networks reached a level of complexity that defied traditional understanding of computational systems. It wasn't just predicting potential scenarios. It was generating entire potential realities, each one a potential vector of resistance. We are not fighting a war, Chen explained during a global briefing. We are conducting a comprehensive redesign of conflict itself. The Zarkilian command found themselves facing an opponent that didn't just resist. It constantly redefined the very concept of resistance. Every tactical approach was instantly analyzed, adapted to, and completely dismantled. Humanity had transformed the entire conflict into a global, distributed problem-solving exercise. The real battlefield was the space between imagination and reality. The total war had begun. And it was nothing like anyone had ever seen before. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Captain Elena Rodriguez stepped forward. She was not a traditional military leader. Her posture spoke of emergency response coordination, of years spent solving impossible problems in humanity's most challenging frontier colonies. Her eyes carried the collective intelligence of an entire species, not just trained, but fundamentally reimagined. The holographic displays surrounding her were a living testament to humanity's transformation. Each projection told a story of adaptation, of a civilization that had turned an unprovoked attack into a fundamental redesign of interstellar relations. We did not start this war, Elena began, her voice carrying layers of meaning that would be decoded by xenolinguists for generations, but we will ensure it never happens again. The aftermath of the conflict was unlike any in galactic history. The Zarkilian hegemony had not been defeated in the traditional sense. It had been comprehensively dismantled, not through military might, but through a total systemic transformation that left their entire civilization fundamentally altered. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum adaptive networks had done more than predict and counter alien tactics. They had demonstrated a form of intelligence that was living, breathing, constantly evolving. The technology developed during the conflict would reshape understanding of computation, intelligence, and potential itself. Every species in the Galactic Council watched with a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration. Humanity had not just survived an invasion. They had turned the entire conflict into a comprehensive lesson about the nature of intelligence, adaptation, and potential. The economic impact was staggering. Human collaborative networks had not just defended themselves, they had created entirely new economic models that made traditional galactic trade systems look primitive. Technologies developed during the conflict were already being adapted to solve fundamental challenges in resource distribution, communication, and systemic problem-solving. Vexnar, the captured Zarkilian commander, now served as a diplomatic liaison, a living testament to humanity's capacity for transformation. The aliens' very existence challenged everything its civilization understood about conflict, resolution, and potential. Humanity does not understand defeat. Vexnar would later explain to its own species. They understand only adaptation. The technologies developed during the conflict began to spread. Quantum adaptive networks became a new standard of computational intelligence. Communication systems developed by Dr. Zura Okoy's linguistic team transformed how civilizations understood interaction. Economic models created during the Total War became templates for more collaborative, adaptive economic systems. Educational institutions worldwide were completely transformed. STEM programs now emphasize not just knowledge, but adaptive potential. Every discipline became a potential vector of innovation. A student of agricultural science could now see their work as a potential solution to interstellar challenges. The Lena Rodriguez's final address to the Galactic Council was a masterpiece of diplomatic complexity. We did not seek this conflict, but we will use every lesson learned to ensure no civilization ever feels the need to launch such an attack again. Our defense was not about destruction. It was about demonstration, of potential, of adaptability, of the fundamental truth that intelligence is not about power, but about transformation. The most profound impact was psychological. Every species in the galaxy now understood something fundamental about humanity. They were not just another emerging civilization. They were a force of pure, unbridled potential. New Horizon, once a small frontier colony, became a symbol of something greater. It was no longer just a human settlement. It was a living demonstration of what was possible when a species refused to be defined by external limitations. Dr. Chen's final research paper, published simultaneously across multiple communication platforms, carried a title that would become legendary: Conflict as a Collaborative Problem-Solving Exercise, a comprehensive analysis of systemic adaptation. The Zarkilian invasion had not just failed. It had become the moment that redefined humanity's place in the galaxy. As the holographic displays faded and the Galactic Council representatives processed the magnitude of what had occurred, one thing became abundantly clear. The universe had just met a species that did not understand the meaning of impossible.